Hello, I'm Dr. Sandra Lunte, and I am the flute professor at the University of Louisiana Monroe. And today I'd like to talk a little bit about vibrato. Now I know you've probably heard that word before, and maybe you've even used vibrato before. It really comes from the word vibrate. And before we talk about what it is and how you create it, I just want to play a long note without vibrato and a long note with vibrato. Now I want to play a short note. Okay, so did you notice that the speed of vibrato with the long note versus the short note, those speeds were different? And I want to talk a little bit about that today. I want to play just a short excerpt of the beginning of the second movement of the Bach E-flat major sonata, and then a short excerpt, just a teeny excerpt from the beginning of the Mozart Concerto in G. And I'm going to play the first one without vibrato and then with. Now I'm going to play it with. What did that do for you as a listener? I want you to be thinking about that. Here's some Mozart. So, if you were here with me, I would ask you, what did that do for you as a listener? What did you think? And what vibrato really does is it enhances the sound. The most important thing about vibrato is something I bet you're never going to guess in a million years. And that's that you need to have a beautiful and pure and solid straight tone, like the first time I played the notes and the first time I played the melodies, in order to make the vibrato really enhance the sound. Sometimes I hear people play a vibrato and it's like they're trying to hide behind the vibrato. We've all heard people have really, really quick, fast vibratos, and it just doesn't enhance the sound. So one of the things that I will always encourage students to do is to work on your straight tone. Now that's a whole other video in itself, isn't it? And it has its own beauty, certainly. If you've ever heard a young boys choir sing, they don't use vibrato, and it has its own beauty. And I want you, as a flute player, to be able to make the choice to use no vibrato, a slower vibrato, or a faster vibrato. If you noticed, with the Mozart, the notes that I vibrated on were shorter, so I used faster vibrato. I had to sneak it in. Now, if I sustained a note with that speed of vibrato, it would sound silly. What would that sound like? You don't want that, do you? No. So, what's my point? My point is that I want you as a flutist to be able to create all sorts of different speeds of vibrato so that you can choose how to enhance the music that you're playing. So, how in the world do you do this? All right. Well, the flute is more like the human voice than any other wind instrument. And the reason is we don't have a mouthpiece and we don't have a reed. So it really does depend on not only what's going on here, but what's going on inside. And a well-kept secret is that I studied voice seriously for many years ago, and a lot of the things I learned in my voice lessons I use when I teach flute, particularly when I teach sound, because I think those two things go hand in hand. All right. I want you to do this after I do it. I know it's going to be weird, but it's just you and me, so it's okay. All right? I just want you to put your hand here and go, ah, 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 ah. Okay, do it. That's where vibrato comes from. Now, I know there's this urban legend that it comes from your diaphragm. It does not come from your diaphragm. It comes from your throat. Now, I think people are afraid to say that because they're afraid that if they say it comes from your throat, that you will tighten your throat. So the whole idea is to be able to keep your throat open and loose while still creating it. If you're singing, sometimes this is another thing I'll do with students, and I'll ask them to pretend like they're an opera singer, and we'll just like let loose with this hilarious, loud note with vibrato. My apologies to opera singers. We're not making fun of you. I'm trying to get to the inside of their bodies to see how to create this sound. And it really does come from there. Now, obviously, that's slower than any vibrato you're going to do. But if you can figure out where it's coming from and how to target that, then you can create a faster vibrato. And I know I have to keep this video pretty short, but I'm going to give you some tools that you can start to work with. So one of the things that I like to do is I like to start working with a metronome. Now, really super important. I don't want you to measure your vibrato when you're playing music. I don't want you to be like, hey, this quarter note gets 4 vibratos and this gets, no. The idea with working with a metronome is to be able to see if you can make slow vibrato, fast vibrato, or anything in between. Then you can start to make the transition to just doing it on your own. For instance, I'm just gonna show you. So I don't know if you can hear here's the metronome is on 60 right now. And even if you can't hear it, it's okay. So that's where it is. So I'm just going to vibrate eighth notes. Okay? Now, you can do any note. I'm just doing a nice middle of the road G because I think it's a good place to start, and it's sort of easier to just get in touch with that. Again, is this a speed of vibrato you would ever use? No, of course not. That would be way too slow. But you're just getting in touch with your body and how to create the actual vibrato. So you may also notice that when I'm doing this, my cheeks are vibrating. Now that's also a whole other video. Maybe we need to do a whole series of loose cheeks and loose lips. Sometimes, oh, I guess I could turn off that. I think sometimes when people have trouble vibrating, it's actually not a vibrato problem, it's a tension problem. So sort of keep that in your mind. So what I have students do is I have them put it on 60 and do eighth notes, then I have them do it at 65 and do eighth notes, 70 eighth notes, and so on. Then we mix it up. The next thing we're gonna do is I'm gonna do triplets. And can you hear that? Again, that's slower than any vibrato you're going to use, but you're getting in touch with it. Then, and again, I'm giving you the short version of this, all right? You might spend a week just doing eighth notes and triplets. Then you're going to add 16th notes. Here's a little aside. This exercise also helps to open you up. I sort of figured that out by accident. And my students will sometimes do this vibrato exercise when they really don't have to, but they just know that they need to open up. It really does help you open up. So then I'm gonna move the metronome. I'm gonna move it up to 70. I'm gonna skip ahead a couple steps. I'm gonna do my eighth notes. I'm gonna do my triplets. I'm going to do my 16ths. And as you get faster, you're going to be able to see, oh, that's probably too fast a vibrato, but maybe it's not. The next step is to do a mixture. So I'm going to do 2 groups of eighths, 2 groups of triplets, and 2 groups of 16ths. It's a little harder than it seems, and you don't want to jump to that right away. You want to do just the eighth notes first till you feel really good about it. If you try to jump too quickly, then you'll be frustrated, and we don't want that. I'm just trying to present this all to you so that you can have the information. Now, even more difficult is going backwards. So I'm going to do 16ths, triplets, and eighths. Doesn't seem like it would be harder, but it actually is. Okay, once again, I don't want you to count the vibratos when you're playing music. This is a way to just get in touch with your body and see where it comes from. If you're having trouble, you can go back and do You can do that as well and figure out where it's coming from and then do it on your instrument. And be creative. I know all of you are creative and you can figure out a way to make this information work for you. Eventually, you'll get higher and higher and higher, but I wouldn't do that all at once. Feel good about where you are, put it aside, the next day or the next week, move on a little higher and a little higher. So, how do you make the transition from I'm counting vibratos to now I want to play a piece of music and use vibrato? A lot of that is imitation. What I do with my students is once they get to that point when they are physically capable of producing a vibrato at many different speeds, then the next thing we do is we do imitation where I'll play something and they'll play it back. And I'll play something and they'll play it back. Now, you may not have me. You might, but you may not have me. So find someone whose vibrato you like and trade things, trade little melodies. It doesn't have to be hard. As a matter of fact, it shouldn't be hard so that you can just think about the sound. The other thing I really encourage you to do is listen to recordings of other instruments that use vibrato. It's really, really lovely to be able to imitate that. Vocalists, cellists, violinists. I mean, really everybody except clarinet, right? I mean, every wind instrument, trombone doesn't always, but sometimes it does, right? So I think just imitation and just listening and noticing. I want to go back to the straight sound before I say goodbye to you all. So I said that the foundation of beautiful vibrato and a beautiful sound is a good straight tone, a good solid straight tone. Sometimes if students come to me and they have what we call a nanny goat vibrato, the ha thing, I'll ask them to play everything with a straight tone for a few weeks until we get that really good, and then we add the vibrato the other way. Simply doing long tones will help your straight sound. Long tones can be done really any way that you want. They are simply long tones. They are long notes. You can do them by twos, you can do them by threes. Some flute teachers have very specific ways they want them done. I think as long as you start somewhere in the instrument where you feel comfortable and then go down and then start somewhere comfortable and go up, you're good. So even just a way to just think only about the sound. You're not thinking about notes. You're just thinking about your sound in your air. You can pick a spot on the wall and just blow the air toward there. The other thing is to do it mindfully. Obviously, that's something we want to do with everything we do. I will tell a funny story. My husband came in the room some years ago and I was doing long tones in front of the Food Network. And he said, I'm telling your students. Because I was not doing my long tones mindfully. I was doing them while I was watching. I was going through the motions, but it was not helpful because I really wasn't listening and being mindful. So even 2 minutes of mindful long tones will help you more than 10 minutes of Food Network long tones. So I hope this has helped you today. It's a lot of information that I would normally tell over a long period of time, but I hope this has planted some ideas in your head. Vibrato is something that flutists use often to enhance the sound. It's a beautiful thing, but we want it to enhance the sound. It's a color that we choose, not just something that happens all the time. So I hope that helped.